Welcome to Democracy-ish. I'm Danielle Moodie.
And I'm Wajahat, and unlike Danielle, I'm grateful I live in Virginia and not in New York, which is not going to experience an uptick in electricity charges because Ontario is responding to these reckless trade wars. But other than that, so glad to be winning.
So glad to be winning. And, I just realized, Waj, before we even jump in, why. I was like, why isn't this loading? Why isn't this loading for us to go live? And breaking news, Twitter has been down for the last 5 hours. And it wasn't loading quickly for us to jump on because we can't stream on your Twitter account because Twitter is down. And I
good.
pray to God it's been hacked. So there is that.
So Doge took a chainsaw to Twitter and it messed up our StreamYard, which is why we were delayed by 30 seconds. But other than that, Danielle, don't you feel great again? Isn't this awesome? How does it feel to own the libs?
7 weeks in to Donald Trump's administration, his regime. We can't even call it an administration. I just want to put up this picture, our photo of the day for our show To Russia with Love, because the accuracy. There is a French magazine that put Donald Trump on the cover, and they called him Moscow's man.
That's on point.
And I'm like, and so you have all of these international newspapers, journalists who are not trying to look for euphemisms in the way that they are covering this moment. It is clear to them, right, as Donald Trump's moves is now a threat to all of Europe, right? By saying we're no longer supporting our ally in Ukraine, while Ukraine is no longer our ally because we have found ourselves here. And I want you, Waj, to talk to us about this piece in the Financial Times right now, which, by the way, not a liberal outlet.
Not a flaming liberal lefty resistance outlet, but nonetheless does great reporting. And the framing of today's show is the GOP is now a right-wing authoritarian cult. It is from Russia to MAGA. And you might think, oh, that's hyperbole. But we brought some receipts about how this movement, this conservative movement, has now, if you will, mutated into this. And this is an article that came out a couple of days ago, and there's two graphs in this article, Danielle, that I want to bring up in particular that shows you where the MAGA movement and the conservative movement is. Now,
the
U.S. now, folks, is now closer to Russia, Turkey, and China in many of its values, specifically not just the conservatives, but as a result of conservatives pushing the Overton window to the right, something we discussed last week when Gavin Newsom made the brilliant decision on his podcast to host who, Danielle? Can you tell us who Gavin Newsom hosted on his podcast?
Charlie Kirk, darling of the right, founder of Turning Point USA, overall white supremacist and misogynist, that Gavin Newsom decided that he was going to, I guess, audition for Republican light, to be a compassionate conservative, to see how that was going to go over. And did it go over well?
No, conservative activists said this is awesome. Charlie Kirk conceded nothing, and Gavin Newsom conceded on major points. That's how the Overton window shifts from the center to the right. You go more and more and more to the right, and what was once known as moderate now becomes hard right. Case in point, Danielle. Look at the scale, folks. The liberals' conservative value scale. Just look at it. You got Norway all the way to the left. Norwegians, they give a lot of taxes, but the government actually takes care of its citizens. I've been there before. They get high quality education, healthcare. You got the US left. All right, we're doing pretty good. The German left, which is no longer in power. In the middle, all right, you got the France right, the German right, the UK right. Not perfect, but look all the way at the bottom right. Can you tell us, Danielle, who is catching up to Russia? Like just a nose hair away. Can you just My
This
eyes
is
might be bad.
this is the what would be the opposite of the amazing race. This is the declining race, right? The US now just a hair behind Turkey and Russia in terms of their value proposition, which we can't even arguably say is conservative. It's fascist because look who they're aligned. But look, Waj, who we have passed on this, like on this scale, which is China. Like, do you see where China is?
China is the yellow. Look at the bottom, folks. Bottom right. The yellow
China
dot.
is the yellow. And then here we are. America is the red dot. Makes sense. Turkey and Russia, right? Turkey just a little bit ahead of the US, a little bit ahead of Russia, but look how far we are away from China.
And look at Italy. Italy has literally a Mussolini lover as its leader, Maloney. And even then, we're like, nah, Italy, we got you. We got you. Uh, but the breadth and depth of the divide today means dialogue between Trump and Keir Starmer or Macron is akin to the first meeting between two previously isolated civilizations. Goals, strategies, and tactics that are given across the rest of the West seems an anathema to Trump and Vance. This disconnect explains why the UK's prime minister could have what was, by all accounts, a successful meeting with the US president, only to be blindsided on fundamental issues hours later.
Just I want us to like unpack for a moment that opening sentence. But the breadth and depth of the divide today means dialogue between Trump, Starmer, Macron is akin to the first meeting between two previously isolated civilizations. Folks, do you understand what this means? This FT piece, I have to say, was honestly, it was breathtaking. And I want to go back to the map. I'm going to put into the chat because somebody just asked, in order to get access to FT, you actually have to sign up with an email. So I dropped it in the event that you want to see it because Barb just asked for it.
And I think Twitter is back. And there was another. No, we don't have it yet. Sorry. There's another amazing graph, folks, in that shows literally every other country trending kind of, not every other country, but most of the countries we mentioned kind of trending up towards liberal democratic, maybe a little bit in the middle. Italy is a little bit down, obviously, like we said, Maloney's in power. Then at the bottom, going crashing all the way down and nearing Turkey and Russia, folks, is the US right. This is where we are. So when we say that the GOP is no longer just a normal right-wing movement, it is an extremist authoritarian movement. That graph tells you. And it's suppose you don't believe that graph. Then let me just bring some receipts. Donald Trump parroted pro-Russian talking points in the past 2 weeks. Him and JD Vance teamed up against Zelensky. When JD Vance went to Europe, he bemoaned their attack on what? The free press and rights, as Elon Musk, the co-president, was asking for lengthy prison sentences for 60 Minutes. And Donald Trump, in his campaign to attack the press, said that the AP, the Associated Press, was going to be punished. Why, Danielle? Because they refused to jettison their editorial standards and call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of what? Gulf of America. And
a Gulf of stupidity.
The Brits are coming out and saying, hey, we're not right wing. You're right. Labor Party won. I was just talking about the graph, how the UK right, I was meant the UK right is like center to the right. And that's not even that far right. So even the right wing of other countries, Danielle, is not even as close to where Donald Trump and MAGA has taken the conservative movement, which currently owns the House, the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, and I would say the media.
And I just want to give you all just a little bit of breaking news that the stock market is down nearly 400 points right now,
Oh,
like as
wow.
we discuss this, because of what? Fears of a recession. And why would you have those fears? Oh, I don't know. Because Donald Trump, when asked, are we going into a recession, said, everyone's just got to tighten their belts a little more, although he can't because he's so rotund.
No, Danielle's absolutely on point. You think she's being hyperbolic over the weekend during a interview with the press, specifically Maria is that her name? The Fox News apparatchik, Maria Bartiromo, like a true believer.
Mhm.
She's kind of like, hey, so tell people recession isn't coming, and he's like, nah,
Mm,
it's gonna be a
mm.
little tough. So he did rule out recession. And then remember last month when he gave his interview with Sean Hannity, like other Fox people, realize they're not that dumb, folks. They look at the trends, they look at the graphs, they see the economy, they're worrying, they're fretting. Remember, Sean Hannity, of all people, tried 5 times to get Donald Trump back on track
Yes,
about the economy, and Donald
correct.
was on his grievance tour, and Donald finally said, "What? I didn't care."
I don't care.
And then over the weekend he reposted an article essentially telling people to shut up about the price of eggs. We're not making this up. We would have brought you the
The
receipts,
man, the
but Twitter is down because Elon Musk is running it. He literally retweeted a post telling people to shut up about the price of eggs.
right. But remind us who was talking about the price of eggs on the campaign trail ad nauseum? Who was talking about the price of gas? Who said that as soon as they got into office, that all prices were going to go down? Maybe he confused that with the stock market because that is actually what has tanked since he has come into office. It is extraordinary, but I wanted to get us back on track in terms of where the United States is and why the chart that we brought up from the Financial Times is important at this moment. Because I always tell you guys, particularly on the Danielle Moodie show, that you need to take breaks so that you don't have a breakdown. So I myself was off of the news this weekend, taking a bit of a reprieve. And so I missed a harrowing story that, thank God for Wajahat and his news scouting for our show in the morning on Monday mornings, because it's like, Danielle, I should send you my newsletter from hell because that's essentially what your email is. It's like, how does this email find you? In tears. That's how it finds me. And so here is the latest headline, which is absolutely extraordinary, breathtaking. US immigration agents arrest Palestinian student protester at Columbia University in Trump crackdown. If you all also remember that, over right at the end of last week, the Trump regime cut $400 million worth of funding to Columbia University
Mm-hmm.
as punishment to the school for the protests that happened over last semester, the spring semester, over Gaza, and the atrocities and human life that has been lost in that region. So here's where we are, folks. That Mahmoud Khalil, a student at the University School of International and Public Affairs, was arrested by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security agents at his university residence on Saturday evening. The Students' Workers of Columbia Labor Union said in a statement. Secretary of State Marco Rubio shared a news report of Khalil's arrest on social media on Sunday, adding the comment, quote, "We will be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported." He did not elaborate because that's all bullshit and lies. Uh, and spokespeople for Rubio did not respond to questions because, of course, because how do you respond when you say, so free speech in this country and the right to protest no longer applies? Is that correct? Because that is the only question to ask in this moment.
This is the folks ask, We're going to break it down because a lot of folks might be asking, well, why is this such a big deal? Why should I care? Mahmoud Khalil is a green card holder, a permanent legal resident. Okay. He's married to a U.S. citizen. His wife is 8 months pregnant. He has not been charged with any crimes. If he, God forbid, did any crimes, he's been a pretty public figure in leading these protests. How come nobody charged him, right? The Secretary of State has no legal right to strip someone, especially a green card holder, of their status. DHS, when they were given this order, were apparently really shocked and surprised. ICE went and picked him up. They didn't care that he's a green card holder. As far as we know, we have due process in this country. But after the fact, Homeland Security said he is aligned with Hamas. Okay, where's the proof? Where's the evidence? Where's the due process? And now his wife, who's 8 months pregnant, we want to check up on the news, but as over the weekend, she didn't even know where they detained him. So they didn't know where he is.
For all we know, he could be in Guantanamo Bay right now. For all we know, they could have picked him up, right? The United States, you have to understand, in this moment, is acting as a terrorist organization where the rules no longer apply, where you can go into a school, you can go into anywhere, and your green card there are basically saying your green card, naturalized citizen, any of these things no longer apply if we say that you are a terrorist.
Exactly. And that one exception that allows the government to do this is the national security threat. If they can convince you that, if they can say that you're a national security threat, voila, it goes back to the post 9/11 mayhem and chaos. And so now a green card holder, a permanent lawful resident, married to a citizen who has not broken any laws, who is exercising our First Amendment rights by peaceful assembly and nonviolent political protests against Israel's, what Amnesty International says is a genocide, apartheid, occupation, and destruction of Gaza, now is made an example. And literally in the night, ICE agents came in, took this green card holder, detained him, have kept him somewhere, who knows what. And Republicans, free speech advocates, Barry Weiss, the free press, not a peep. You know else who didn't say a peep? ADL. You know who actually supported this? The Anti-Defamation League. And certain right-wing, I would say, pro-Israel Jewish groups are saying this is awesome. And now, thank God, you have so many Jewish Americans saying, even some of those who are on the right are saying, maybe us Jews shouldn't do this, because when it comes to authoritarian regimes overnight changing the status of people and detaining them and declaring them a threat, us Jews know what's up. And then finally, I'll say, if you're saying, just the Palestinians, I don't care. Folks, if the United States government and the state can all of a sudden unilaterally just jettison all laws and declare you a national security threat, and without bringing any evidence whatsoever, change your status and or just straight up detain you and deport you despite you being a green card holder, what will stop them from, I don't know, doing this to pro-Ukrainian protesters? What will stop them from Mexican, Canadian protesters? People like me and Danielle.
BLM protesters, right? What is going to stop it from happening to any of us? Because basically what the United States, by virtue of this move, has now said is that we get to dictate who is a terrorist and who is not based on our feelings about the issue that you are protesting and not on any evidence whatsoever. And if they are the government and the power and the might, and because they're using this lightning rod of an issue in this country right now, what other members of Congress, they just let a elderly Black man with a cane get pulled out of the joint sessions, and not one Democrat did anything. 10 Democrats voted against Representative Al Green to be censured, right? So do you think, where are the representatives? Do you think anybody is going to come to the aid in New York State? I'm going to wait to see what members of Congress are going to come out and demand his release right? As a resident of this city, of this state. So it is, what we have to understand is that when we say, oh, fascism is coming, oh, this is backsliding, we are here. We have arrived in this moment where any one of us, by virtue of our right to articulate our feelings against this government, against any government, now can have us aligned as terrorists and thrown in God knows where.
And we have a good, smart crowd. Thank you for the community. Margaret's right. That's what they did in Poland. All of a sudden, you had the ghettos, and Jews got herded in the ghettos, right? Seen as national security threats. And then we know what happened. It has happened in every single authoritarian regime that the undesirable group that they don't like is seen as a security threat. And slowly but surely, guess what? Rights are violated. It happened in the United States of America, World War II, an executive order. Japanese American citizens were seen as a national security threat. They trumped up the evidence. Later on, they found out there was no evidence. And as a result, thanks to the panic and the fear, Japanese American citizens were interned, folks, in America during World War II. And we barely talk about it. Lives were destroyed. This is how it happens. They're gonna go after anyone and everyone whom they deem an enemy. I want to remind people that when it came to the BLM protests that Daniel brought out, peaceful protest, and Donald Trump said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Mm-hmm.
And then he told Mark Esper, can I shoot them in the knee? And Mark Esper, remember that at the time, he says, no. Nonetheless, remember that kind of violent clearing out of the DC square, and then Donald Trump walked to the church and held the upside down Bible? That was him in the first term, folks. Mark Esper, who's a right winger, at least there were people there saying, no, you can't shoot people. Now he has Pete Hegseth, who aligns himself with militias and violence, Kash Patel. So what do you think is going to happen, Danielle, when protesters come out? And another point, the co-president, Elon Musk, we would have brought you the receipt, but
but Twitter is down.
His website is down. As this was happening over the weekend, he openly said that we should criminally prosecute people who donate to Act Blue. All right. And then he said we should, the person who is leading the anti-Tesla protests, he said that person is, quote, committing crimes.
And so
they're revealing their hand, folks. They're revealing their hand.
None of this is happening in secret. And I want to, Jules, which is why I left this up there.
Oh, sorry. I just
had
took
put
it out.
up, Kent State. And I want to remind folks, because Waj just gave a breakdown of our history in this country with regard to Japanese internment. People brought up, what happened in Poland. And I just, I'm thankful for Jules for reminding folks and putting up Kent State.
Yep.
And for those that don't know, the Kent State shootings occurred on May 4th, 1970, when the Ohio National Guard shot and killed 4 students and injured 9 others during an anti-Vietnam War protest at Kent State University.
Mm-hmm.
And the violence that we saw against Columbia University students, against students all across this country that had started peaceful encampments, right, on their college campuses to protest their universities' funding, right, of different activities and spaces in Israel, and saying that they wanted them to defund, right, from hostile regimes, which is what they were saying about Israel. This is not new. What the United States has done, what MAGA is doing now, is taking it up all the way, ratcheting up the violence, weaponizing our government against us. But these moments that are being remembered right now on this show, these are things that have happened, right? Every time that there has been acts of protest, collective protest, and organizing against oppression, against white supremacy, all of these things, there have been acts of violence by our government, right? And so what we are seeing now is a supreme escalation and
Yep.
just an absolute abdication of our laws and rules, which is that this Palestinian student is a green card holder. He is a resident of these United States. And what they have said is that, no, you're not. And so you can say at this moment, well, again, this doesn't have anything to do with me because, oh, I have a birth certificate that says I'm born here or whatever. You have to understand that inside of these type of regimes, what you think was law, what you think mattered, what you think will hold up in court no longer does if the government has decided that you are a terrorist. And what Elon Musk and what Waj just laid out that he's trying to do with Act Blue and people that are protesting against Tesla is saying that anyone that protests, regardless of what it is that you are protesting against, is an enemy of the state.
That's right.
And how do
You're
we treat
protesting
our
against them.
enemies? How do we treat our enemies? We strip them of their rights and we throw them in prisons, or as they like to do, into Guantanamo Bay, which is happening.
Yeah. And not just the bad ones, if you will, right? The adults, the black and brown folks. I want to remind people, just piggybacking off what Danielle said, is that Tom Homan, Donald Trump's border czar, openly said that they won't separate mixed status families. Oh, when they get rid of the undocumented parents, people ask, what about the kids? You know, the kids born here, the kids who are U.S. citizens. And he said, oh, no, we're not going to separate them. They're going to go too. So this is why there's another constitutional crisis, because they want to undo birthright citizenship. So everyone who says, but the 14th Amendment, but they're citizens. Authoritarians don't care.
Come on.
When they get power, they don't care. That's what we tried to warn people. Everyone said, but what about the guardrails? And what about the rules? And what about civility? Here's my ping pong paddle. No. Sorry if I sound like a Democrat. What we keep saying is, this ain't the old fight, right? You need new fighters up to square up, elbows up against an authoritarian regime. And speaking about Guantanamo Bay, Kristi Noem, the new, it makes me laugh, the new secretary of DHS with her new cowboy hats and facelifts, or collagen, allegedly, she's perfectly fine with sending families to Guantanamo. And as we've tried to remind you on this show, guess what business is a booming? Whose stocks went up as all the stocks are going down right after it was announced that Trump was elected, Danielle?
Privatized prisons. They went through the fucking roof, right? So you also have to understand that the hate, right, the lawlessness is also tied to a grift. And that is essentially the wonderful circle that they are using. Everything comes back to the grift. And what we are seeing right now is that, folks, this is one of those moments where I'm going to say to you and say to everybody is that it's time to start thinking about what your future in these United States is going to look like. And I will say this because I said it on social media last week. And I've said it here and I'm going to say it again. Exactly what just happened with Mahmoud is exactly why I keep saying I do not want black and brown people protesting. It is white people's turn, because guess who they're not going to shoot? Guess who is not going to end up in prison and kidnapped on the first go round? Y'all, white folks. So when you're asking, what can I do? What can I do? Do that. Do the hard work of being on the front lines so that black and brown people's bodies are not used as battering rams. because they will make an example out of destroying us, right? And saying that we are the terrorists if white folks are not the ones that are out there. So again, when people say, what can I do? Do that.
And I'm gonna be in a rare mood, a little bit more cynical than Danielle is. I think they'll go after the whites as well.
But they won't go after them first, and they won't go after them hard.
Yeah,
And
they
that's
won't
why
go after them as brutally.
so
Correct.
so if you want to see the escalation in violence, right, that we are going to see, it will take longer, right, for it to get there if it is white folks that are out there putting their bodies on the line instead of it being black and brown people who are always on the front lines. So you are
And
going to hear me say over and over again, black and brown people, it is not our time.
and
Stay home.
they're itching for us to do it. And
Yep.
the reason they're itching for us to do it, and I'm glad finally I read this in the New Republic. You and I have been saying it for a while, and whenever we say we're seen as crazy, more and more folks are finally using the word martial law, saying Donald Trump isn't going to leave. So if you get mass protests, folks, and especially if it's the blacks and the browns, the Muslims and the Mexicans and the BLMs, they've already called us what? Antifa, terrorists, this, that. Look what they call this poor guy. This guy is a permanent green card, permanent lawful resident, green card holder. Just because he's a Palestinian and advocates for Palestinian rights, they all of a sudden just casually called him what? Hamas. No evidence. He's aligned with Hamas. Meh. So they can easily call us what? Terrorist group. And they want the fight. They want to crack down. I want to remind people that right before he was elected, Donald Trump quoted Hitler yet again, not the first time, and said he will unleash the National Guard and the military on the quote enemies from within. I've always stuck with that quote. I've always repeated it. People forget it. I do not forget it. I bring the receipts, Danielle. The enemy from within. What do you mean? No other president in the history of America has ever threatened to unleash the military and National Guard against his own citizens. Now you couple that with what he did or wanted to do with the BLM protesters, right? And Esper held them back. And then you see the fact that he said again and again and again, folks, both before and after, what happens if I stay? I think people want me to stay. So what I would do if I were him, I hate to give him ideas, is make things so terrible that these groups, especially as Danielle said, people of color, come out and also their allies. He declares them a threat, right? He waits for someone to throw a Molotov cocktail or break one window pane. He says this is a security threat against America. I have to unleash the military and National Guard. They trump up some conspiracy. They say I have to declare martial law. Yep. He's already quoted Napoleon. He posted that tweet saying he who wants to save his country does not break any laws. He called himself king. He declares martial law. When he declares martial law, he becomes the supreme authority. And guess what? We don't have elections. And you all think I'm crazy? Go ahead. If I were him and I were connecting all the dots and I follow all the literal Bond villain plots that they have openly shared, Danielle, is what I said so far-fetched?
No. And it's why I posted this right now from Sunshine, who just said, we are almost out of time. And I'm going to say that, yes, you are correct, right? This is everything that you just said, Waj, is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. We are there. We are here. And it is for people who still are thinking to themselves, oh, it's not going to happen. The weather is changing. It is getting warmer. The protests are going to increase in size, right? Which means that there's going to be an increase in what? Law enforcement, right? And then for places that have red state governors, what do you think that they're going to do? They're going to call in the National Guard. They're going to call in these things, all to egg it up, right? You keep pushing, you keep pushing, you keep pushing. The pushing is purposeful so that they can now unleash all of the violence that they want and call everybody that is outside a terrorist.
And guess what, folks? Another piece of news that we had, but Twitter went down because of genius Elon Musk. If you think you're saying, but what about the guardrails? Not everyone in law enforcement, not everyone in DHS. Danielle, can you tell them about the lie detector tests? Big news over the weekend. The Trump administration, I mean, like one of 30 big newses, the Trump administration is now doing lie detector tests to purge members who are not deemed loyal in the DHS. This is what's happening right in the United States, and this is what has happened in authoritarian regimes. Who is loyal not to the Constitution, the rule of law, or the American people? Who is loyal to the party and the leader?
And what I'm saying is, folks, no one is safe. No one is safe, right? It starts small. It starts with this, right? The federal workers who have hundreds of thousands now, who have either been pushed out, resigned, are now seeking unemployment. And these people who are losing their jobs, right? Those that are going to be blacklisted, because again, what do the lie detectors do? It is a tool to be able to blacklist people and say that they are an enemy of the state. It all comes back to this. But thrust into unemployment, federal workers face relatives who celebrate their firing. Why? Because it's a fucking cult.
Yep.
Because why else would you celebrate your supposed loved ones now losing their jobs because of your cult leader? So scrambling to replace their health insurance and to find new work, some laid off federal workers are running into another unexpected pleasantry. Relatives cheering their firing. Just think about that, right? Like, people lose their jobs in this country. Most people, a majority of Americans, I want to probably say probably like 75 to 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, meaning that if you lose a paycheck, right, you're not okay. If an unexpected $400, $500 bill comes up, you are not okay. So losing your job, losing health care, and your family members, what this article was saying, are in chat rooms and chat messages, family texts, cheering and celebrating your demise.
It is, I mean, that AP, that's another AP article. AP's been on point. It came over the weekend. I recommend you all try to find it if you can. It is sobering. And we had a tweet for you, but because Elon Musk Twitter's down, but I had a copy paste here. If I can quote one of the people who was interviewed, quote, "I've been treated as a public enemy by the government, and now it's bleeding into my own family," says 24-year-old Luke Tobin, who was fired last month from his job as a technician with the U.S. Forest Service in Idaho's Nez Perce National Forest. That is the enemy. Their own family member who works for the forest, because Musk and Trump and all the Republicans said he got fired because he's useless. And they're like, that's right. You are useless, beloved family member. He goes, I have no health care anymore. Well, you shouldn't have worked to make the parks better and the forests. You lib.
Yeah, it's yeah, today's a dark Monday. I don't even I don't even know what else to say. I'm like, it's a really dark Monday. And we try every week. I feel like we try to leave with something that is good. And
before we get to hope, can we stay a little bit more on the darkness just for a second?
Stay on the darkness.
So I can say this, maybe. Well, you all could say it. It's for every community, folks, has chickens.
Ooh, shit.
for Colonel Sanders, every community.
Mm-hmm.
And every community, especially in this election, we had folks who effed around, and we tried our best. We warned. We went to the WhatsApp groups. We went to the
Mm-hmm.
community centers. We went to the
Mm-hmm.
churches and the mosques and the synagogues and said, please, please don't vote for Donald Trump. Please, please, please. I know you think trans people are scary and weird, but maybe, just maybe, don't worry about them who are 1%. Worry about the 1% trying to screw you. And I know you like your tax cuts, but what good are tax cuts if your kids are part of, I don't know, student protests, get detained? And what good are, your tax cuts if the economy falls? And I know, you're upset about the price of eggs, but what happens if the person who comes in power is a dictator who doesn't care about the price of eggs or the price of gas and does trade wars? So maybe, just maybe, please, for the love of God, even though you have your legitimate complaints,
for the love of God,
just hold your nose and vote for Kamala Harris, because the lesser of two evils is literally that, and it ain't fascism or authoritarianism. And as I've been telling my own community members, even though a majority of Muslims voted for Kamala,
mm-hmm.
this country now has, we talked about this, I think, last week, has invited Andrew Tate and his brother. For those who don't know, Andrew Tate is one of the most noxious, toxic online personalities who is part of this MMA UFC cult. Just filthy. Go read what he says about women, who, by the way, couldn't leave Romania. Why couldn't he not left Romania? Because he is he's facing charges for sexual trafficking and the rape of minors. Richard Grenell of the Trump administration worked out something with Romania that got the Tate brothers into America. Tate brothers are so extreme that even DeSantis of Florida and Hawley are like, maybe we shouldn't associate with these folks. But it's a cult now. It's radicalized. Guess who showed up at the UFC fight over the weekend and was greeted by all the folks there, including mother effing Slater, Mario Lopez, and Dana White. Dana White, the head of UFC, Trump ally, who was there at the inauguration and was there on election night from the podium. He thanked all the YouTubers for helping elect Donald Trump, including UFC commentator Joe Rogan. Guess who was embraced by all these people? Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
And as Andrew Tate was being embraced, folks, news came out that Donald Trump, who promised last year to bring back the Muslim ban, he used the word Muslim ban, is now looking to ban Pakistanis, my peoples, and Afghans, including nearly the 200,000 Afghans who applied and were approved for a special visa. These individuals who helped U.S. troops for 20 years during the reckless war on terror in Afghanistan, who, as a reward for helping our troops survive Taliban, were promised a special visa. Guess what's happening to those Afghans?
Fuck them. that's what's happening to them. Fuck them. We love white racists and rapists and sex traffickers and drug addicts. Like, that's who America is.
You can come. You can come.
They can come, right? Like, fuck the Statue of Liberty. Give me your rapists, your racists, and your misogynists, right? Come to our shores. Like, that's where we are at.
But immigrants, literally immigrants who help save U.S. lives, soldiers' lives, F you, because you're brown and dark and gross, and you come from the S-hole country. I don't know about you, Danielle. I've been on a tear. I've been on I told you so. I've called out all these organizations and groups within my communities, Muslims and Pakistanis. There was something called, real quick, a PAC, PAKPAC. It's a political action committee in DC. They gave me an award a couple years ago, Pakistani Americans, super educated, super smart. PAC decided to endorse Donald Trump. Why? For the selfish reason and the delusion that somehow Donald Trump would help free Pakistani leader Imran Khan from prison. Guess who's still in prison, folks? Imran Khan. And many of these doctors of PAC, there was a dissension within the group. So a lot of the folks said, I don't support this. We begged them. And now, as a result of what I just told you with the Muslim ban, Pack, the same group that endorsed Donald Trump, is saying, please don't do this. Please, hey, us Pakistanis, we're the good ones. This isn't fair. F around and find out, Danielle. That's where we are. Sorry, I had to go on that little rant.
No,
Forgive
it's
me.
like, I mean, it's just that's where we are. And to close out today, there's only, again, we talked about this last week. Where are the Democrats? Where are the Democrats? What are they doing? Where are they? And I'm telling you, there's a lot that you can say about Bernie Sanders. And as soon as the election was over, Bernie Sanders packed up what is no doubt some type of knit suitcase and headed out on the road to red states to go hold town halls in the very districts and places that Donald Trump won. Do you think that other Democrats leadership would be following suit? Do you think that they would be supporting and uplifting this action? Absolutely not. But guess who is drawing the crowds? And what is said here? What all of this tells me is not just in Michigan or in Vermont. The people of this country will not allow us to move toward oligarchy. They will not allow Trump to take us into authoritarianism, Sanders yelled from a pickup truck with a bullhorn. We're prepared to fight and we're going to win. This man is how old? 83. How old is Rep. Al Green? Old and not able-bodied anymore with a cane. So when we talk about the old people that need to get out of the way, it is not old people in general. It is those that have old thinking that lead them to uphold the status quo.
There you go.
That's what we are talking about, because there are older people that are out here still doing the work. While
Maxine Waters, 86, Bernie Sanders, 83, Al Green, 77.
So what I'm saying is, when we talk about, and I say over and over again, we need to get these octogenarians and these septenarians. I am not talking about these folks. I am talking about those that are not just, they are old in their thinking. Bernie Sanders is 83 years old, and he said, you know what we need to do right now? Go into these fucking red states, particularly as these people are losing their jobs, are losing Medicaid, are losing Social Security, as schools are being shut down, as measles are outbreaking. He's going where the people are. Where are the establishment Democrats? Nowhere to be fucking found.
And Bernie, and seeing the success that Bernie has had, and some person just mentioned that other Democrats are now doing these town halls, and you're seeing, hope is also contagious. So is bravery. What you also saw over the weekend is Ro Khanna, representative from California, has come out against Gavin Newsom's comments on trans athletes. Right, you saw that. You saw a shift where Governor Walz. Tim Walz, vice president. I don't know if you saw this. This is a really good article you all should read. It came on Politico, where he said, they muzzled me and we made a mistake. He said, we should have been more of like, he openly said it. They muzzled me. They told me not to say weird. Those Democrats, Danielle, need to be launched into the sun. Because if you remember, Tim Walz's weird comment is the audition that got him the vice presidency.
Right.
And then they muzzled him.
But here's the problem. This is the problem. Tim Walz, right? Kamala Harris, you get into these positions. You get out from being connected and in touch with the people, and all you're surrounded with are the consultants, the elite class that are telling you, based on our focus group, not based on fucking firsthand information, but based on our focus group or our polls, you should be saying X, Y, and Z. And instead of going with their gut, which got them to that place to begin with, they start listening to those who have since far removed themselves from being connected to the people. And that's how you get the upholding of the status quo over and over and over again.
And I just want to say the point is their focus group, oftentimes, folks, is funded by millionaires and billionaires. And so their focus group leans center. And as we said, the center no longer is the center, folks. The center has been pushed all the way to the right. And if I may, just to bring things full circle so you don't think we all are cray. Look at this. Look at this. We even bring this one up. Speaking about the cult, look, okay, check out the red line. That was the favorability rating of Zelensky. Okay. Now, do you see that drastic plunge all the way down? That literally happened within a week. So, the favorability rating for Zelensky for Republicans wasn't already that high. But as a result of Republicans attacking Zelensky for 1 week, Danielle, look at where it is. I mean, I've never seen such a domination of the mindset of one political base like I've seen it now. So if you don't think that's an authoritarian cult, I give you this, and I want to go back to where we started. Check out the US right. It has surpassed China, a nose hair away from Russia, run by a brutal anti-American dictator, and right there next to Turkey, which has run under the authoritarian regime of Erdogan. This is where we are. This is where we are, folks. But it's not the majority. We are the majority. The majority was lulled to sleep. My final words on this is the following. What I have realized is Americans assume that we're unique. We're special. That for whatever reason, history won't touch us. That somehow we are gilded. And history is reminding us is that we aren't special. That we are like everybody else. That this has happened before. It is happening now. It will happen again. The guardrails don't matter when you have a dictator and a fascist in power. We are an extremely privileged people, despite all the challenges. If you don't believe me, look at Palestinians and look at Syrians. Syrians right now who for years were battling Assad, a genocidal dictator, okay? So to think that this won't happen, to think that we won't go through some things, that is an act of privilege and delusion. We're going to be going through some things. But others have gone through it before. Our ancestors in this country have gone through it before, especially Black folks, people of color. Listen to these people. Listen to their wisdom. Look at the tactics that they've used. It's going to be all hands on deck. The one thing that we have is the majority. We have the numbers. And the other thing I think we have is that this country has been born out of what? Revolution. We decided we will not bend the knee to a monarchy. No taxation without representation. A colony took on an empire. And Black folks who were enslaved, along with a multicultural coalition, it took forever. It's still, the march is still ongoing, but through nonviolent resistance, was able to temporarily put white supremacy, at least at bay. I didn't say destroyed, but at bay, right? Women were in the kitchen. They're no longer in the kitchen. Women couldn't vote, folks, until the 20th century. LGBT folks were in the closet just until like 10, 15 years ago, right? Muslims were seen as the enemy 20 years ago. People were perfectly fine bombing us. And now we got Muslim communions, Muslim elected officials. Black people are no longer riding in the back of the bus. We got undocumented people speaking out. So we're not going back. And it's us versus the fascists, folks. I said us versus the fascists. So all hands on deck. Do what you can. And the best place to start, and Danielle mentioned this, is take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your health, take care of your family, and start locally. Start locally. Protect your local community. Make that the bulwark.
Amen. No notes. Everything that Waj said times 1,000. We have a long road ahead of us, friends, a long road ahead of us. And things are going to get extremely, extremely dangerous as we continue to move into the warmer months. So understand your rights. Use your privilege if you are white, if you are wealthy, if you are cis, if you are hetero, to protect other marginalized communities. It is time for those that have taken the back burner to be on the front lines, doing the hard work and gathering others. because they are coming for all of us. They're coming for all of us, and we cannot kid ourselves that we're going to be able to keep this at bay. It is at our front doors, and it is time to organize, 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 protect yourselves and everyone else around you. But know that your silence, however, will not protect you. That is it, dear friends, for Democracy-ish.
Wait, but do the shameless stuff. I have to do it for
Oh,
you.
do the shameless stuff.
Danielle,
Do the
Danielle
shameless
is
stuff.
at 15. How many subscribers?
I think 15.3.
If you are not subscribing yet, please, as you're watching this on YouTube, because Twitter is broken, please click that bell. Please subscribe. This is how the elves in the YouTube algorithm help us and support us. It's independent media. We have no paywalls. We haven't taken any billionaire donors. We don't have any ads. It's pure grassroots. It's untainted. So the $9.99, the $2.99, the $3.99, all the folks who are
and the
super
$50
chatters,
and the $20 that just came in.
yeah, it goes along. You know, you see that new button there with the heart and the dollar sign in there. That's how you become basically a tipper or donator. So all of those goes a long way. Just like Jimmy did. Thank you for the $20 super sticker. That goes a long way. Subscribe. Share. The E Schwartz, as always, gives us $5. Thank you so
Always.
much.
Thank you.
It helps Danielle buy some coffee. she needs it. Christine, you always help. Thank you so much. We're building out this community. It's a 2-day show now. It used to be only once a week. It used to be on podcasts.
And now we can do it twice.
And people are growing. Usually when we're on Twitter, also, I'm on Twitter and Danielle on Twitter, our feed goes to like 2,000. But the fact that we even got like 700 almost live, it goes a long way. And then once this comes out, which is going to be in like a minute, please share it on Blue Sky, anywhere. It goes a long way. And then we're trying to get Danielle to 20,000 subscribers. Thank you, Lori. $4.99. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. And thank you to our awesome moderators. We really appreciate it as well.
Deb, to Susan, you guys hold it down all the time, every day, basically for this channel. But absolutely for this show, folks. We are here Mondays and Fridays, 12 p.m. Eastern. The Danielle Moodie Show is live 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. Waj and I go live on the Mary Trump channel with the Nerd Avengers on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yep.
When we're able to join, support independent media. Thank you so much for your donation. Subscribe, like, and share. And let's get to 20,000 before, summer comes, because that would be fantastic. That is it for us here at Democracy-ish. I am Danielle Moodie.
And I'm a fasting Wajahat.
And we will be back on Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern, if in fact, or actually regardless of the state of the country, we gonna be here. Inshallah. Appreciate y'all.